because I am 19 years old. I've been a drug and alcohol user since age 11. I was just in there for my third abortion. It's seared in my mind. I've given it so many times. Could you help me? I said, I don't have all the answers, but I know the one who does, and I do. And I said, I can absolutely help you. My husband was a corrections officer. He worked for the Department of Corrections up in the hills. When my two little boys were distracted and father's coming home in the driveway, I met him. Mind you, we're only like 29, 30 years old. And I said to my husband, as he's getting out of the car and he's exhausted and he's probably, knowing him, done a 16-hour shift. I said, I did something kind of crazy today. And he said to me, exactly, what'd you do? Take a baby? I said, I did. And my husband's exact words were, well, I guess that's God saying, put your money where your mouth is. And then we found a Christian lawyer from our church. We found a Christian doctor that I know. They're all still around. And those men helped us, and we went through that pregnancy together. The birth mother was in my home constantly. We gained a great rapport and relationship, and she fell in love with us. We fell in love with her.
So did you maintain a relationship with Christy over the years?
The deal is that we made is we wanted this child to have what we thought would be best for him and best for her. She wanted to remain, out there and get on with her life, which I appreciated, and I gave her honor in that. She gave us honor in saying, this is your child, and you raise him as you will.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Christy, so when did your son learn that Christy was his birth mother?
I think on the way home from the hospital. You're not getting my point. On the way home from the hospital, later that night, the following day, and every single day, okay, until he was old enough to say to the big boys, I'm special, I'm adopted.
Okay. But when did he know?
Say, oh, brother.
When did he know that Christy was his birth mom?
After he had left my home, he was a 19-year-old man on his own he left my home with a law degree. So he's a very capable young man, and unfortunately after his first year of law at a wonderful college, he was top of his class, bar none. This kid is bright. You know what? Something about, I'll tell you, these guys in the sodomite lifestyle, in general, that I found, they're brilliant. They're all brilliant. These boys are brilliant. These boys are beautiful. They're good looking, in other words. They're handsome. They have so much going for them. Like my son. My son was done because I taught him. So I also taught him not only that you're special, you're adopted. I started teaching him, phonics when he's like 3. And my kid can read the Modesto Bee. Not that it's very sophisticated. But he could read that when he's 6. And by the time he's like 13, he's pretty much done with high school. So I'm going, well, Matt, you're a little young. Let's do a 4-year, we did a 4-year law class together here at the house from Oak Hill College of Law. And then we turned around, we knew Brad Dacus of Pacific Justice. He kind of directed us. He said, best by none, by far, Mylinda, if you're gonna have him, it's gotta be Oak Hill College of Law. He goes, applications come in every day from everywhere. Those are the top. They go to the top. So we did the top. He went to Illinois. He got a 2-year paralegal degree in 1 year because we had a proctor come in, and the UC services, the UC are so funny. They're like, give us your son, because he'll make our numbers just shoot up. I said, yeah, I know. No thanks. I did all that work. So he gets a 2-year paralegal in 1 year, and it was like blowing his nose. It was so easy. And then he gets distracted in his first year of law school, and the doctorate program, I should say. He's 18. By 19, I can see something's really not right. And then he comes to me and confesses. And he actually said, Mom, if I were to go, let's just say if I were to go, because we're always talking open about all this stuff throughout his years. I could never live here if I was in the homosexual lifestyle, could I? And I said, oh man, you know that. And so actually, he left here at 19, unfortunately. I felt like maybe, Don always talks about something called kind of soul holes, I think you call them, don't you? And
a broken soul.
A broken soul. And so I felt like, as much as Matthew, if you knew Matthew when he was growing up, okay, this is a crazy thing to say. Sorry, Pastor, but I've often thought when he was growing up, I'm talking when he's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I always felt like I would sometimes say in my prayers, Lord, I feel like the Mother Mary in a way. I feel like you've given me like this perfect child. This boy was so perfect, so wonderful. He means the world to me. And so that's the kind of child. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Lost my train of thought. But this boy was struggling, and I could see it. And he came to me and my husband a couple weeks after he decided he didn't want to live here, and he said, we need to have a talk. We had a talk in the living room. Had a pastor friend of ours here, and we asked him some questions, and we said, Matt, what's going on? And he said, I think I'm gay. And I said, Matthew, you of all people, you're so smart. You know good and well there's no such thing. Male and female, he created them. We know this, and God did not make you gay. I'll tell you one thing. If you choose the sodomite lifestyle, and then it hit me like that, Don, and I said, who touched you? Who made you believe that? And he said, I will never tell. Telling me that it happened. And it wasn't long before that when he started the Juris Doctorate program at Oak Brook, boy, they're mean. The first case you take is a sodomite case. That's how they start them every time. So I could see that was really disturbing to him. And I remember one day he was in here working on his computer, because that was originally his desk. He came in the living room where I was, and he was furious, and he said, do you realize, and he started going off on this sodomy case that he was working on. He said, do you realize these men could be taken down later? I mean, there's no statute of limitations on this. And I was like, I saw the emotion and the passion, and it was almost like I realized what he was struggling with, though he hadn't said anything till after he left here.
So that's about 10 years ago?
That was almost 10 years ago. He's 19, he's 20, he'll be 29 on November 21st.
So are you estranged?
We, actually I went to church with Don for a long time. When Don was talking about going to that original sodomite prom, we were there. I remember the first time he filmed it, and then we came along. And so we all went to a church together, and the pastor there, actually Pastor Brown, when Matthew came out and such, Thomas came over, Tom Brown came here, and we all sat around in there. You might have heard this because you might be in a history that talked about this. But the question was, what do we do with Matthew? Because everybody knows Matthew. And that's what I was telling you about before. Everybody knows Matthew. Everybody in this town. When Matthew is 4 years old and I'm going to the car wash, I don't care who the mayor was, or when he was 6 or 10, they're not saying, hi, Mylinda. They're saying, hi, Matthew. They all know who my kid is. Because no matter where we went, we made friends, and nobody forgot Matthew.
So this is a very painful...
It's a painful time, and it's a painful thing for me.
It's clear that you really love him.
Oh, God. With all my heart.
But
Give me a break.
But you're estranged.
But because, and let me tell you what happened. The pastor came over, his son, Thomas, and maybe an elder, maybe another elder, and they sat in there and they said to Ron and I, we're going to have to exercise church discipline on Matthew. And I said, I know. And they said, at some point, Mylinda, when will you pull back a little? And I said, you know what? I've learned something watching others deal with this issue. There comes a time when Matthew will just naturally pull away from us. And that time has come. So unfortunately, yes, we're estranged because of Matthew, not because of me. Because he knows good and well he could come to that door any time. But he also knows every time he left, since that very day, not one time did he come in this door and leave, and I didn't say, Matthew, repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. And the last, I'd say 10 times he turned around and would say, yes, I know, Mother, the kingdom of God is at hand. I said, it's here, it's now, it's among us, Matthew, please. And so, yeah, we're estranged because of that, not because of my lack of love for Matthew. And then people say, well, then how can you stand? I can't tell you, I can't express it to you, but I love my Maker and my Lord more than my husband, more than this dear man I love, and this dear man I love, this woman I love over here. I love a lot of people, and a lot of people love me, believe it or not. As wicked as I am, and as bold as I am, people still love me, and I still love them. It doesn't take away from my love, because I'm passionate about my Lord and Savior. How could I not be? He saved me. Because if not for the grace of God, there go I. I might be a Matthew, or I might be a pervert. Because you know what? A man touched me when I was little too. I know how my son feels. I was twisted too. It twists you. It hurts you. They show you pornography, and it does something to your mind. And until I was a married woman, I struggled. And probably my poor husband, until I came to the point where I said, you know what? I realized here, there weren't self-help and all this bull crap that's out there now, right? There was just, you got to deal with things. And I came to the point where I said, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to deal with it in the right way. I'm going to make sure my Lord and Savior knows I'm so glad that you saved me and that you've cleansed me, and I'm going to accept that, and I'm going on. So I'm not one of those women that sits around and talks about this. This is like the second time publicly I've ever said it, and it's all within the last 2 weeks. Because you know what? I get on with it, and I'm going to get on with it even if Matthew continues in the sodomite lifestyle. I'm going to be okay. And if I don't see him again, if he rejects me till the day I die, or even beyond it, I'm going to be okay, even though it breaks my heart. Because I told you all this story the other day. There was a woman in the Bible, and she had a baby, a child, a little baby boy, and it died in the night. Another woman on the same night had a baby. That baby lived. This woman awoke, and forgive me if I got it a little bit wrong, but this woman literally took this child out of the baby's hands, out of the mother's hands. This mother awoke and she said, hey, wait a minute. Whoa, that's my baby. And a fight ensued over this child. They literally, physically were fighting over this child, I remember. And they brought him to the wisest man that ever lived. And he said to his servant, bring me a knife. And he said, cut that baby. And the one woman said, go for it. Give me my half. I'll take it. And the other woman threw herself on the child and said, not on my life, king. Let the child live. Let him be. Let him. I'll be the one to suffer. That would be me. I'll be the one to suffer. The sodomites can have him. The birth mother can have him. Their family can have him. The sodomites and the family can have him. His friends can have him. The culture can have him. Satan can have my son for now. But as long as I live, I'm going to pray that God would save my son's soul. He saved his body already, and for that I'm grateful. I, like I was saying, am much like a Mother Mary, had the privilege of saying, this is an awesome, wonderful son, and I had the most fun raising that boy, more than I could ever tell you.
How often do you pray for him?
Every single day, and sometimes every single hour.
What's your prayer?
The prayer is, Lord, save my son's soul, so that he will live in eternity with you.
And do you have a relationship with Christy? Do you talk to her?
What happened with Christy is she called every year on Matthew's birthday, and she would say to me the exact same words every year. You know who this is? And I would say, I do. And she would say, thank you. You changed my life. And I would say to her, thank you. You changed my life. And she'd say, but you gave me more. And I would say, no, but you gave me more. And she did that until Matthew was about 5 or 6. And one day he answered the phone on his birthday. And he gave me the phone and she said, I guess this will be our last phone call. I said, I think probably that's best. And we cried together and we talked together. And I prayed with Christy and I prayed for Christy. And I still do.
So is that the last time you've spoken with her?
That is the last time I spoke to her regarding Matthew until Matthew moved out. And then we get back to the soul. You brought me back. I remembered what Don said about the soul pool. And I said to Ron, do you think I ought to call Christy? Because she is local, she will know. She'll find out. We have so many friends in common. She'll know that Matthew's left. She'll know he's been in the homosexual. Maybe I should present that to her. So I brought her here. I brought her into Matthew's bedroom first. I said, come with me. And I said, this stack, these are Matthew's awards. They're that thick. I'm not joking. I'm not even exaggerating. As a matter of fact, if you go look at his wall, you'll see there was a book club at yesterday's books. Those people adored my son too, but Matthew would win. It wouldn't be a big deal if I told you this. I have some of his awards up. I'd have to have 2 rooms this size to put them all up. But every single year, my boy won the award for reading. And you know what's a riot? Because, you know me, I'm big into books. I'd say, Matt, you're going to read that book? Why don't you read something else? Because that's not going to count. You've already read that. He'd read it again anyway. He didn't care. He wasn't reading to win. He was a reader. He was a reader by nature. And he didn't win by like a little bit. He like won by a million miles. So anyway, I showed her that. I showed her his awards for speaking. He's given this very testimony that I'm giving you. He has given it himself many times. He gave it in Washington, D.C. He gave it in Kansas City, Missouri. He's given it all over the world. His speech, he's given it at Chico State University. He's thanked Ron and I publicly. And he's introduced us. I'll be happy to show you that video if you'd like to see it. It's beautiful. You'll be amazed at what you see. I promise. This boy he's brilliant, he's beautiful, and he was a God.
So what's he doing now?
No, because I've lost such contact. I know he's in or graduated from the nursing program. I know that. But like I said, he left here with a degree. He immediately went and got another degree and another degree. So one of the things I did say to him is, Matthew, don't be always a learner and never learn it. At some point, you got to take responsibility for what you've been given and use it and start, going forward. But I know this is setting back this obsession that takes over in these boys' heads with the sodomy. And I can appreciate that, having been molested myself. I can appreciate that. But
So
thank God I didn't become...
That's the cause
Absolutely.
of
Having been there, it's almost, what happened is, I'm a reader too, as you can see. So after he left my home and I was devastated, because I was devastated, I didn't even go, I'm very involved in the community. Don't pretend you don't know. But I stayed in my house for probably 2 years, because I couldn't deal. I was just going after, and even facing life, almost with his son. This. We went like this, we went like this. And, my kids have been through a lot. My husband had a horrid accident. Matthew was going to go with my husband that day. He was meta-flighted in. He was taken down. Lost his career. He lost everything. We've been through a lot of losses. It hasn't been a fun life for me, okay? This ain't fun. Somebody posted it on Facebook. This will be a fun event. And I said, I appreciate but you're a little ignorant. This isn't fun. This isn't fun for me. It's a battlefield. It's not a recreation room. This is a fight. It's not a game. It's a fight for men's souls. It's a fight for truth. It's a fight for what's right. And you know what? There is another day coming. I know everybody wants to pretend like this is it. We get in the grave and it's all done. Let's say our prayers and cry and let's pretend. It's not going to be like that. there's judgment day coming for me. And so when I say, as much as I adore my son, as much as I love my husband, my other 2 children, all my grandchildren, as much as I love my parents, much as I love these men and these women in my home, and all these people that know me in this community, I'm very loved. As much as that, I'm still willing to stand, even if I'm all by myself, because Judgment Day is coming for me too. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Do you realize the year I ran for school board? Do you realize the tax I took? And I was willing to stand. And do you know what? I spent less than $5,000 on a school board race. There were 17 people, I think, or 13 people in that entire race. I spent less than $5,000. I got more votes from this town than both mayoral candidates put together in the Republican Party, and they both spent together $500,000+ I didn't have to do that. Everybody knows my name. Everyone trusts me. And that's why it's very important. I only get to take 2 things with me, Kevin. My reputation, okay? My reputation and my soul. That's it. That's all I got left.
I've known Mylinda for 45 years, and she's who she says she is. The Bible says that in Proverbs 31, she's a woman with noble character. She's well liked. Yeah, and she's who she says she is. She's a godly woman.
I tried to be.
And this is not a hate group. There's nobody in here who hates anybody.
Not hardly. I've sacrificed.
We are a group of loving people. I got on board because I'm concerned about what's happening to our children. I'm a grandfather. I have 5 grandkids, and I don't want those grandkids to grow up to be molested. I don't want that.
No, because it's painful.
It's painful
to deal
you know, and I know what happens when children are molested.
I've had it. I know.
So, Pastor, is there anything you want to add about the event, about the coalition?
You can bring us up.
Well, actually, there's a lot that, kind of clamoring to say, but I'll just limit my comments to 2 themes maybe. One was there was a discussion about how this is ever going to become so exhaustive throughout.
Because basically, maybe this is a wrong word, but you guys are kind of on the fringe. You're not super mainstream. You don't have
that would be actually.
Can you let him address that?
But you don't have.
That's okay.
You don't have a lot of members.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a lot of money. You have a lot of hope, and you think it's going to take off. You're hoping that we're doing God's will, and God will see that, and the money will come, the people will come. I hear that from you, but you don't have. It's not like you've got 1,000 members in the coalition.
Mm-hmm.
You got so.
We don't need that. We're not even looking for that.
Well,
for most folks, practical-minded, who are coming from a different perspective, would say, how are they going to succeed?
Right.
Without that, why don't you? Well, you say why you don't need that, then we'll go to the pastor. Why don't you need all that?
Remember, we're a peculiar people.
You're what?
We're a peculiar people. I just told you that, so he can.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a legitimate answer to that, and that is, I would say this: number one, that a spark can set a whole forest on fire. If that spark gets enough oxygen and has enough fuel. I believe the oxygen and the fuel to that little spark right now, you have just like a little bit of tinder in a little area that is getting some flame. But I believe the core beliefs of this group, what we are addressing and why we are now a fringe group, used to be the bedrock of America. And what I believe is what God used to bless this nation to be the most productive, the most just, and the most free nation in the entire world, in just an absolute micro moment of history, compared to other nations that have never achieved what we did, took on the most powerful military in our formation. Divine providence in our early years of history are breathtaking. And God has blessed America, I believe, because we were once a people that wanted to honor consistently the laws and the principles of Holy Scripture. And those laws, that word changed my life dramatically when I was 29 years old. I lived a life of unbelief, and now this. I believe with every fiber of my body that word is true. Now, I believe there's enough fabric in America left that holds those core values. Part of that is that we have a principle that we're to live by, to go the extra mile, to believe what's best, to love our enemies, and so forth. Those are all principles that have, what I believe, we tried to, in terms of the LGBT community, to say we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. We'll go the extra mile with you. We'll try to understand you. We'll hear you out. And what has happened is we've now become that fringe group. I feel so backed into a corner that my family, my beliefs have become now not what made America great, but is everything that is perceived as being vile and wrong with America.
So you said made America great, so that this is sort of, you guys support President Trump?
Well, I mean, I use the phrase.
Well, that's
what I mean is,
Oh, my.
No, I'm just asking.
No.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would say this. I'm happy with what Trump has done in presidency, but I don't know about his convictions per se of Christianity, but I have to believe there's some belief. But I would say what I believe, God blessed America financially, morally. It used when I was a kid, we could go walk down 6 blocks to the park without my parents and never have to be worried about it.
Right.
We could leave my door unlocked at night.
We did it.
Now we live in neighborhoods where we're putting bars on our windows, and we've become prisoners in our own homes because crime has just constantly gotten up.
But the coalition isn't anti-crime.
No. I'm saying this is emblematic of what's going on in America. Okay. Now this particular issue, what has happened is we are being accused of hate speech when we are trying to warn people of a judgment day that Mylinda just expressed. We're all under the conviction we will face our Creator God and we'll have to give an account for our life. And I fear that day. I believe with every fiber of my body that day is coming. And I believe if the LGBT community continues down the course that they are going in, my heart breaks, because when they stand on that day, they're going to find a God not who's just super tolerant of whatever you want to do, but a God who is incensed at the behavior that goes on in that community. And it is my sincere plea for that community to recognize that fearful day, and while they have a chance to turn from that and to a much better life, to a real lifestyle and not a death style. So I do think there's enough people in America that this spark will catch and it will become a forest fire, because I believe there's enough of that belief in America.
You talked about the core values. Can you tell a little bit more about those?
Core values of
the coalition that you're trying to restore, that you
Normal, natural, healthy, sane.
Yeah, that's the phrase. So, and again, I think that's all biblically defendable. We can go into the details of what that's going to look like. Maybe you want to come out to the event and maybe you can hear a little bit more about that, because I'm sure you're probably
and the event. I think Mylinda described the event as sort of church in the park.
I said it's going to be much more. I said I think you guys are sensationalizing it a bit. We want to have worship in the park of our Creator. We want to give Him honor and glory. We want to recognize before God and man His created order of male and female. He created them. We understand that He's given us a mandate, male and female, to procreate. That is part of our calling as human beings. And I was saying that if we really took that serious And let's just say tomorrow we all wake up and we just all decide together in America we are going to be heterosexual. Let's just say it could happen. If it did happen, we would procreate this society very quickly, and especially with all of the fornication, right, that goes on.
I guess I'm not following.
I want you to keep following. Let's say we woke up tomorrow and we were all homosexual. If we were all generically homosexual, you realize the death and the destruction and the pain, and you realize we would literally cease to exist?
But why would
we
why
would
would,
cease
why
to
would we all
exist.
choose to be homosexual?
I'm
Well,
just saying,
just use an
it
example.
makes no sense.
As a broad phase,
Yeah.
a broad phrase, and we put it on the flyer. We have a celebration of life.
Right.
We are a life culture. Everything we do to affirm men, women, children, Western civilization culture, is all in support of life. And we have religion, Christianity, which is a life religion. Our opponents, it's all the opposite. We're opposing a culture of death. If you take, as Mylinda said, if you take everything they're doing to its logical conclusion, we will have a death culture. We already are approaching that because we're just ready to destroy our own children, to sacrifice them to this opposite religion of Satanism/humanism. So it's very distinct religious war to distinct religious beliefs, and so we're presenting that culture of life to revive it in this nation, because from our perspective, the culture of death is overshadowing us as time goes on. And there'll be countless deaths and tragedies above and beyond Matthew. It is a singular tragedy, but the intent of our opponents is to multiply that tragedy endlessly, and we're here to stop it.
So Pastor, are you a coalition member?
Well, there is no official
Yeah,
membership. That I haven't
But
signed
he's
any kind of
definitely-
Are
paper.
you one of the
Yeah,
organizers
I'm
of the
just-
event? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how to correctly identify you beyond being the pastor of your church.
Sure, happy to answer that. I just met Dr. Grundmann maybe
Right.
a little over a week ago. I've known Mylinda
introduced them.
primarily through the internet. I applaud what I've seen in the group as far as values, Christian values, and so forth. And I guess I do have the second point I wanted to get to. So, so what I've seen so far, I applaud. I would say this: I don't know the exhaustive details of the group, but I do. Everything that I've seen so far, I would applaud for having, God, who is the creator of the LGBT community as well as the Christian community. He is our creator corporately as a people, as a human race. And as our creator, we're all accountable to him. And so that is what I appreciate about this group. And so we need to have unity, but the unity can't be in terms of rebellion against our Creator.
Right.
It's got to be in submission to Him.
Amen.
The second point, if you want me to get that, I would be happy to just try to flesh out one area of potential concern in this interview is several times you have used the acronym, you've identified it, LBTQ, and left the G out.
That's just a verbal slip.
Okay, because I mean it was like
It's not intentional. It's
Okay,
a
sure,
verbal
sure.
slip.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to make sure, because my concern was that if you're fearful that somehow the homosexual community is being misrepresented in light of what might be perceived as, the pedophiles and the bestiality and all of these other groups that you might consider as perverted, I think we ought to at least open up a discussion on how do we perceive the homosexual community, particularly, and if these are all agreed, these are aberrant and worthy of criticism, we're agreeing on that, but now how do you deal with the homosexual community in particular? If that's being eliminated, I would want to answer that.
But I want to hang on a second, because earlier Don said, and let's just say homosexual, whether you're lesbian, bisexual, whatever you,
Right.
the
Whatever
entire
letter.
LBQ, whatever they correct.
LGBT.
Okay. Okay, well,
Alright.
let's just say homosexual is a shorthand for that. And I know that's a simplification. So you're saying that individual homosexuals are not child molesters,
Right.
but the
right.
community as a whole
The war machine is.
a child. That's the part I don't understand.
Well, because the war machine is, how do you, when you have just a San Francisco Pride March and you have corporate sponsors, you have literally millions of dollars. How do they get millions of dollars or a blank check for whatever they want to do? How do they accomplish that? And so my presentation is that is the war machine, because everything you see in the Pride Parade is a street production by the producers who put that on to influence our culture through social engineering and change our culture into acceptance of all the pathologies